name is Stamatina, but you can call me Matina, like Latina with an M. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about ego versus soul. There are so many different variations of how we can, describe this dynamic, right? Some people like to call it lower consciousness versus higher consciousness, devil versus God, shadow versus light. But I want to specifically talk about how it could also be translated as our past self versus our future self. Because, as I've written down here, I believe that your soul is just the evolved, healed, and future and wiser version of your ego, right? They're two sides of the same coin. And one can't exist without the other, because as we are all an extension of source energy, God, the Most High, universe, light cannot exist without dark, and vice versa. Life implies death, death implies life. There is no sun without the moon, there's no moon without the sun, there's no stars without the moon, etc., etc. Yin and yang. So let's say that our future self is our soul that's guiding us, and our past self is just our ego, right? It's kind of like, do you look back on your inner child, your childhood self, and think, oh, she or he is so stupid, I can't believe I did that, but I dropped as a baby. I don't know how harsh your inner critic is, but hopefully you would have enough grace and compassion to look at an older photo of yourself, let's say a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old photo of yourself, and hold so much compassion and empathy and say, hey, they were doing the best that they could at the time with the knowledge that they had. They were just a little kid with limited resources, and they didn't have a handbook on life, and neither did their parents, unfortunately. And look at how far we've come. They were able to get me to this point, and I've achieved so much, even if that achievement is just being alive. What an achievement to be alive in this day and age, right? So hopefully in the same way you can hold as much compassion to your ego. So I know that I have struggled with this and still struggle with this, to kind of be in this to and fro of ego and soul, and I'm like, oh, this is another stage of my awakening and spiritual ego, where I'm just like, oh, I just want to demolish and kill the ego and get rid of it completely, and I don't have any ego, I'm just operating from soul all the time, I'm just this white beacon of light, and I never make mistakes, and now that I know who I am, I always operate from this pure state of consciousness and from this pure place. And I'm just pure. Whereas in reality, when the ego actually shows up, and let's say I have a fear that comes up, or whatever it is, a negative thought, I start to freak out and I shut down. I'm like, whoa, we don't do that here anymore. Like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, I am love and light. But at the same time, as our inner child has never left us, it's always growing with us, right? It's just this archetype. It's not like that 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10-year-old is dead. Hopefully. I mean, not metaphorically, not energetically. That childlike essence still is within you and is still begging to be unleashed. And it can only be unleashed if there is a symbiotic relationship that holds compassion, empathy, understanding, unconditional love. And that comes from your present self, but also your future self. Because your present self can only give your inner child, your past self, that feeling if you're in that current state. And sure enough, you can only be in this current state if you have this symbiotic relationship with your future self as well. it's a feedback loop, right? Also because there is no such thing as time as we understand it. According to quantum physics, you know, all of time is happening at once, right now. The past, present, and future is all happening in the now. All we have is now, right? And so as long as that we can understand this and be in alignment and have them all lined up, so to speak, within ourselves, and come into this understanding that the inner child, the current me, the future self are all in the here now, and I am choosing to love myself as much as I can now, and that involves all of me, and that encompasses all of me, future, past, present, and that means ego and soul. Hopefully the feedback loop just becomes more and more love and compassion and empathy, because yes, our future selves are feeding us this higher understanding from the future perspective of, hey, remember, we're all one, time is an illusion, I know a little bit more than you do right now, so you should be listening to me a little bit more, rather than the old way of thinking. So long as we could see to our soul as the evolved and healed, wiser version of us, hopefully we can have more conversations with that part of us. We could listen to it more. We can act from it more, as opposed to any other state. You know, the less wise version of ourselves, the past version of ourselves, the ego version of ourselves. So hopefully something lands for you, and sending you so much love. Catch you in the next one.